dalam situ berkaitan dengan seni dan juga sains dan juga sehingga ke perbanyakan. Kita harapkan kerjasama ini dapat diperkukuhkan dan dikembangkan. Seterusnya kita menyebut yang berbahagia Profesor JS Dr. Muhammad Johari Muhammad Yusof bagi menyampaikan ucap tamu beliau dengan tajuk Seni dalam Sains Geospatial Antardata dan Estetika. Terima kasih.
Sebelum mula. Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Terima kasih saudara pengerusi majlis. Saya hormati Cik Faizal, pengerusi pengarah program Simposium Pangko. Yang saya kasih Cik Hanif, pengarah persatuan. Dr. Khairul was mentioned just now sebagai pengerusi percikan. Pagi ini saya nampak kita berkumpul dalam dewan ni dan saya rasa ada tetamu daripada luar negara. So if you guys may allow me to present this in English, I'll try to mix up English and Bahasa. Perhaps you can learn some of our language after finishing this symposium. Well, okay. Right. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much to the organizer for inviting me this morning. It is my pleasure to be here this morning. Terima kasih. Alright. So, terima kasih banyak sudi jemput saya. I don't know why you guys invited. Art is not my area of expertise. I'm a tool specialist. People who are dealing with those types of data. But someone contacted me and asked me to give a keynote on a very beautiful symposium. I think the title of the symposium is very interesting to me. The intersection between science and art. Well, hence I think this is very interesting, and I will try to. I'll try to cover my area of expertise, and I'll try to deliver my interest in geospatial planning, and how perhaps I leave it to you guys. Saya serahkan pada tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. How can my area of interest or my area of study in geospatial planning may be interpreted into art? Yeah. But I would love to start my keynote this morning by sharing with you few images, beberapa few images that maybe trigger your attention. Well, if we look at this image, what perhaps pop up in your mind? What perhaps come straightforward in your mind? Well, I stated there, gas lamp lighter. Pollution. Okay, I'll go to the next image. Telegraph operator. Classic pictures. Gambar-gambar lama. A typist. I'm trying to find someone who have the same length of what I'm trying to deliver here. So what the images that I've shown you, kita ada penyala lampu gas pada zaman dahulu, the gas lamp lighter, telegraph operator, and then we have typist. Well, guys, have you seen this before? Anybody playing bowling? I think this is not good. This is better. hilang-hilang. Bowling. Last time, now I think some of you might play bowling, you go for bowling, and you don't know what is happening mechanically at the end of the lane. So previously, we have pin center, and those teenagers at that particular century of time, they are working in this bowling alley as a pin center. Yeah? So, well, the reason of me showing you all these images is I would like to share with you. These are all outdated.
Phone signal.
We don't need this gas line anymore, and we don't need the telegraph operator. At our fingertips now, we can send messages at our fingertips every second. The other part of the world can receive the message that we are sending. Well, we no more need a typist. We ourselves are typing it and sending, and preparing the reports and etc. Well, if you go and play bowling, there's no need for you to have somebody at the back there to do this pin. Now, maybe one day. My occupation is as a lecturer, as a professor in one of the university here in Malaysia. I don't know whether one day a professor is needed in the university or not. With, the advancements of technology, the advancements of digital era here. Well, I prepared some of my slides here by using ChatGPT. I'll be honest with you guys in this hall. Well, we are using all these technologies and etc. Nowadays. So all information is actually at our fingertips, dekat hujung jari kita. Sekarang ni mudah untuk kita dapat. And one of the professions that, to my opinion, I think are also obsolete, are also diminishing, which are the cartographers. So which is related to my area of professions, my area of expertise. So bidang saya dulu, orang yang buat maps, those who are making maps, those who are analysing and preparing the maps, yang menyediakan peta-peta dunia, peta-peta negara dan sebagainya, we call them as cartographer. Well, when I did my master's and PhD in University of Edinburgh in United Kingdom, those cartographers have turned into a digital mappers, a digital cartographer. And they don't call themselves as a cartographer anymore. They bukan lagi sebagai cartographer. They call themselves as geospecialists, geospatial people. Yeah. So I think this is another profession yang probably satu masa nanti gone. Kita dulu pakai, saya tak tahu sekarang siapa lagi pakai kamera dengan filem berpanjang-panjang. Siapa lagi pakai kaset. Dulu kalau kita masuk dalam radio, pakai kaset, and then tiba-tiba kita punya tali tape hitam tu panjang-panjang, dan kita kena guna pensel pusingkan dia. So those are gone anymore. Now everybody are using phones and etc. Yeah, and you can see how they make maps last time. They are using manually making maps. Now we no more teaching our students. We no more educating our students on how to make maps manually. We are using technologies in making maps. Yeah. But I would like to bring you guys into what a cartography is actually means. Well, by definition, cartography means is the art and science of making maps. So how am I going to relate that with the symposium topics is intersection between arts and science. So cartography is actually the arts and science of making maps, and it involves collecting geographic information. So kita kumpul data-data atas muka bumi ni, yeah. By collecting those information, then we start to draw and design our beautiful maps. Yeah, and these maps is actually representing whatever on the earth surface. Peta-peta ni
pamerkan, membentangkan apa yang ada atas muka bumi ni. Jalan, sungai, rumah, manusia, haiwan dan sebagainya. So this is the task of cartographer. And a person who make those maps are called as cartographer. But modern digital maps, now we see a lot of modern digital maps are also fit into this cartography because they are the modern way of making maps. So there are many modern ways of making maps. So we have a lot of new software, new tools, new technologies, that being used to create maps. And not only making those maps, but those technology allow us to analyze, to predict future scenario, to simulate whatever going to happen in future. So the professions of cartographer have moved to another level where they are not just making maps, but they are using those geographical data, they are using those scientific data into analyzing and also predicting and simulating whatever is going to happen in the future. So this is what we call as paradigm shift. Satu perubahan paradigma ke atas baru satu sahaja profesi yang sangat kecil dalam dunia yang besar ini. Okay? And now we have many tools now, you name it. And one of the tools that I'm very everyday perhaps using it and I'm teaching it is what we call GIS tool, where modern cartographer using these tools, this software, this technology, GIS, to design maps, to edit the features on the Earth surface. And then by, designing, editing the data, here comes the artistic, the aesthetic value in creating those maps. Because by creating those maps, need us to understand what color should represent what kind of features on the Earth surface. What symbols should represent what kind of entity on the Earth surface. Now here come the interweaving of arts and science. You bayangkanlah saya sebagai geospatial yang hanya tahu mendapatkan data, mereka peta, menganalisa dan mempredik apa-apa yang berlaku pada masa hadapan, tapi saya ini buta seni, saya buta warna, saya tidak pandai membaca simbol dan sebagainya. Maka apa yang saya nak terjemahkan dalam peta tersebut mungkin salah diinterpretasi oleh layman, oleh manusia biasa. Inilah saya lihat bahawa bidang saya bukan saja melihat kepada data, kepada sains, tetapi kepada seni dalam menterjemah data sains tersebut dalam bentuk peta dan sebagainya. Dan dalam GIS ni dia adalah pemetaan yang berdasarkan kepada lapisan, dan satu lapis, each layer representing each entity of the Earth surface. So once you overlay these many layers, it will represent the real world. This is what GIS are all about. Okay. And the beauty of these modern digital maps, you are allowed to update instantly, very quick. It is not time consuming, it is economical. So untuk kita do the updating, untuk kita tambah maklumat dan sebagainya, ianya sangat cepat berbanding dulu. Saya ingat dulu masa saya buat diploma, masa diploma terutamanya, saya ni generasi yang di antara sempat dulu dan pertengahan dan kita masuk dalam era digital. So you guys can guess my age now. So saya di antara tu. So saya ingat lagi masa saya buat diploma, yang mana kita gunakan fountain pen tu, kita kena masukkan in dalam that fountain pen, lepas tu kita draw the manual maps by using tracing paper, and then kalau silap tu kita kena ambil the pisau blade tu, kita kena kikis, and then kita kena oh, there's a lot of hurdles on making one simple maps, and then kita print it in a blueprint. Kenapa dia panggil blueprint? Kerana dia ada satu bau yang sangat tidak menyenangkan selepas kita print out. Tapi benda tu sekarang dah tak wujud dengan adanya digital maps ni, dengan adanya teknologi ni, where we can edit our maps very quick, very efficient, not time consuming, very fast, sangat cepat. And our call cartography today is a combination of traditional map principle, the prinsip-prinsip asas penyediaan peta tadi, dengan digital technology, penggunaan digital technology. Hence, now we call ourselves as a geospatialist, where this geospatialist is a professional who works with location-based data. Now, I would like to emphasize on this data. So we are geospatially will deal a lot of data, many data, and we need to understand the data in order for us to analyze the data, and perhaps by analyzing this data, we might be able to solve the real problems. Hence, this morning, I'm very happy to share with you where the talks this morning, the keynote this morning, will explore the intersection between art and geospatial science and data, and how this intersection between sciences and art in the field of geospatial might be able to enhance the clarity and the depth of this spatial data. Yeah? And this morning, I will share with you many example of my works that I have done throughout maybe nearly 20-25 over years, dealing with geospatial data. And guys, I'll assure you, saya jamin pagi ni, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan tak akan nampak lukisan dalam persembahan saya. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan semua orang seni, so tidak akan nampak canvas painting, neither canvas painting nor oil painting and etc. But I will share with you, I will present to you many maps. Saya nak warning sikit lah, jangan sampai termuntah tengok banyak peta-peta yang telah saya dan juga pelajar saya dan grup research saya hasilkan. So what I'll share with you example of cartographic design, yeah, and how artistic aesthetic approaches can both complement scientific accuracy. Yeah, how can this how can we inject the value of symbols, colors, artistic value, so that it can complement the accuracy of the information that we would like to deliver to the viewer. This is what I will try to share with you today. And I call this as the fusion of data and aesthetic. We always hear fusion food. Today I will put on the plate in front of you the fusion of data and aesthetic. And this fusion of data and aesthetic not only will improve how we read the maps, but also it will expand the role of geospatial products as a powerful tool. Ia adalah salah satu alat komunikasi yang sangat power. A powerful tool for communication, education, and creative expression. I believe in this hall, we have so many artists here, fine artists and etc. You will tell me that your drawings, your canvas, your oil painting is a powerful communication tool. But today, another way around, I will tell you guys as well how powerful are all the maps that a geospatialist or a digital cartographer produce as a powerful communication to deliver or to communicate well with the viewers. Okay. Now, here comes the first map. After this is the first map, and I'll bring you over into many more maps. Well, on the left hand side is a satellite imagery of Kuala Lumpur City. You can see the beautiful of our Kuala Lumpur City through the satellite imagery. If you go to Google Earth, you can also view our Kuala Lumpur City, which is still very beautiful. Percayalah tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, Kuala Lumpur kita sangat cantik. I was telling them, our Kuala Lumpur City very beautiful because it is still green. If I may know, where are you from? You're Malaysian. Oh, boleh pandai bahasa Melayu? Nak pakcik cakap bahasa Inggeris. Pakcik tukar bahasa Melayu lah. Pandai cakap bahasa Melayu rupanya. Okay. Why did I say so? Kenapa saya cakap Kuala Lumpur ni adalah sangat lagi cantik? Kerana Kuala Lumpur ni adalah satu-satunya bandar besar, well-developed city around the world that are still green, yang masih ada banyak kawasan hijau. If you Google, you go to Google Earth, you try to type Tokyo, you try to type London, maybe New York. Masya Allah, dia punya kawasan hijau sangat sikit. But our Kuala Lumpur City, lush of vegetation, lush of greenery. Hence, this is among of my projects where we try to map and to determine, kita cari di dalam kawasan Kuala Lumpur ni, what is the true colours of Kuala Lumpur green spaces? This is the title of the project. What is the true colour of Kuala Lumpur green spaces? So, by using the satellite imagery, then we analyze it. Kita gunakan klasifikasi analisis dan kita kenal pasti di mana balance, di mana build up dan di mana kawasan hijau dan juga di mana air. So this is what we did. So we are telling the local authority, we are telling the Dewan Bandaraya Kuala Lumpur, this is the true colours of your Kuala Lumpur. And I still remember when we presented this idea to the Kuala Lumpur local authority, guys, have a good guess. Apa agaknya dia respon bila saya katakan Kuala Lumpur kita masih banyak kawasan hijau. Agak-agak Datuk Bandar ketika itu, pengarah perancang ketika itu, yang selepas itu menjadi Datuk Bandar, sekarang pun dah tak jadi Datuk Bandar, agak-agak apa dia cakap dengan saya? Boleh buat banyak projek lagi. Apa agak dia? Dia cakap dengan saya, surprisingly, you cannot show this to the public. Jangan tunjuk ini kepada rakyat. Bahaya you beritahu benda ni kepada masyarakat bahawa kita masih lagi ada banyak kawasan hijau. I was like, alamak, what are you trying to say here? I am trying to inform you that, look, we should protect our green spaces. We should conserve and preserve our green spaces so that, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekarang, hujan lebat sikit sahaja Kuala Lumpur, banjir kilat. Kuala Lumpur kita ni sudah tidak jadi sebagai bandar yang ada sponge untuk as a sponge city concept that allowed to absorb water properly so that flash floodings are not happening. Itu masalah kita. Tapi dia orang kata no, bahaya you cerita ni. Saat lagi saya akan ada masalah jika you keluarkan benda ni. Kata saya cakap baik Datuk, baik tuan pengarah perancang, tapi dalam hati saya tak layan you. Saya still, you can Google my name, a lot of my papers telling the real world what is happening in Kuala Lumpur. So my papers, even my thesis, my students are telling the real world this is what happening. But from this research as well, what we did now, with this periodical data, kita ada data secara period secara waktu daripada tahun ke tahun. Dengan data ini kita lihat penurunan kawasan hijau di Kuala Lumpur sangat drastik daripada tahun 2000 sehinggalah kepada tahun 2020. Dengan data penurunan drastik ini, kita buat simulasi, kita buat prediction apa akan berlaku kepada kawasan hijau di Kuala Lumpur pada 2030, 2040, 2050. And sila. Yang ini saya buat tahun 2006. So kita ada theoretical data from year 2000, in fact from 1996. Kita ada data because, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, this satellite imagery will not lie to us. We've got this satellite imagery available from 1980s. By using this satellite imagery, we can do image classification and we can map the periodical information, the periodical data of green spaces availability from year to years. By using this periodical data, then we can come up with an algorithm to simulate what will happen in the future. This is what I'm doing. This is the geospatialist yang tengah buat ni. I'm with my team, with my students, my PhD students, kita buat kerja ni. Yang mungkin pada artis, Pak Cik ni buat apa? Okay, so this is what we are doing. We are using data and then we simulate. We tell the world what is happening in the real world and we simulate and we predict the future scenario. To a particular extent, now we come up with a modeling and algorithm. The flash flood prone area within Kuala Lumpur, kawasan banjir kilat yang kerap berlaku dalam kawasan Kuala Lumpur. Kita tunjukkan juga. Dan bukan saja di Kuala Lumpur, nanti few maps towards the end. Now, salah satu bandar di China, Taiwan City, juga minta saya dan juga student PhD saya come up with this modeling, the scenario modeling of the flash flood incident in Taiwan City in China. I'll show you the example later on. So this is what we are doing. Now with this scientific data, how am I going to inform the engineers, the layperson, the publics, the mayors and etc. You know, in terms of graphically, aesthetically, so that they can easily understand. Now here comes the importance of using the symbols, the colours. Kalau katakanlah saya nak cakap green spaces, tapi saya guna warna merah. The information might be mislead. Yeah? This is one of the project. This is another project since saya ada data Kuala Lumpur. Now, this is showing the number of population within Kuala Lumpur. Kalau tuan-tuan dan puan-puan pergi ke DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia, saya berani jamin hari ini bahawa di Department of Statistics of Malaysia tidak ada taburan penduduk di dalam Malaysia sekalipun seperti ini. Apa yang ada ialah akan ada zon-zon yang menunjukkan jumlah penduduk, zon-zon yang menunjukkan kepadatan penduduk. Itu yang ada. Apa beza data DOSM dengan data yang saya hasilkan ini? Perbezaannya ialah saya gunakan satu kaedah yang kita panggil Daisy-metric mapping. Daisy-metric mapping ni ialah dengan data kependudukan, data populasi yang kita dapat berdasarkan zon tadi itu, kita analisa dia dengan melihat kepada guna tanah semasa di bandar tersebut. Di mana perumahan, di mana perindustrian, di mana kawasan hijau, di mana air, di mana hutan. Maka apa kita buat, kaedah Daisy-metric ni allow us to allocate the population at the right position, at the right location. Maka jika tuan-tuan lihat ni, Yang warna merah ni, tengok saya pun dah raba warna. Yang warna hitam ni adalah populasi kepadatan penduduk yang betul-betul berada di kawasan perumahan. Betul-betul kita letak manusia bukan atas pokok. Kita bukan letak manusia di dalam air. Bukan kita letak manusia di kawasan perindustrian contohnya. Ataupun di pavilion, ICT Mall. Tidak. Kita letak betul-betul manusia di Taman Gombak, di Persin 6 Putrajaya contohnya, ataupun di Kuala Lumpur, di Taman Ampang dan sebagainya. Kita letak betul-betul mereka di kependudukan di mana mereka tinggal, isi rumah mereka berdasarkan number of population tersebut, berdasarkan kepadatan tersebut. Data daripada DOSM hantar, DBKL ambil data daripada DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia. Daripada data tu kita ambil lagi layer data guna tanah, and then kita analysekan dia supaya kita letak manusia betul di kedudukan. Ya. Ya. Betul. So these are the officers. They are not living here. These are green spaces. Kawasan Bukit Kiara. So kita letak betul-betul sebenarnya mereka duduk di sekeliling. In fact, masyarakat Kuala Lumpur yang bekerja di Kuala Lumpur duduk di Seremban, Nilai semua. Di luar Kuala Lumpur. Ini adalah, kalau pergi DOSM boleh tanya dia ada tak data macam ni. Tapi bila kita present this data to DOSM, dia kata, this is going to be very difficult to produce this. Saya tepuk dahi. Saya cakap, Masya Allah, this is very simple. I will tell you, within few minutes, dengan tekan sahaja, kita dapat hasilkan maklumatnya. Very interesting, okay? This is another project that I involved. Now we play with lines. Saya balik daripada PhD, masa tu muda, Cik Nasir rakan sefakulti saya. Tak ada kerja. Bukanlah tak ada kerja. Maksudnya masa tu masih nak mencari arah. Apa saya nak buat habis PhD. Datang dekan saya, dia kata, anyone who would like to volunteer to help the university propose the bicycle lane and covered walkway around University Putra Malaysia. And then saya masa tu bersemangat, baru balik dari PhD. So saya cakap, well, I would like to try. I would like to do it. Then I volunteered myself. So here comes the proposal to propose covered walkway and bicycle lane around University Putra Malaysia, my university. And University Putra Malaysia is among the pioneer university that introduced micro-mobility by using your feet and also bicycle in the campus. After that, it's become an example to other universities around Malaysia. So we started this project around 2010 and it's successfully implemented in year 2011-2012 with a budget around 2.5 million. So the idea was, the former Vice Chancellor, arwah Datuk Radin, meninggal dah, he just tell us, can we reduce the carbon footprint of the campus? This is the idea. Dia tak cakap pun, sila design bicycle lane, sila design covered walkway. Dia kata, can you, dia bagi saya sehelai sahaja dasar hijau, dasar polisi hijau campus Universiti Putra Malaysia. Sehelai keping kertas, and then dia kata, Joe, can you reduce the carbon footprint of the campus? Itu je dia punya message. Dan saya balik. And then this time saya kata, okay, let us come up with this micro-mobility, covered walkway and bicycle path. And then saya datang, Datuk balik, saya tunjuk kita punya design. Tanpa carbon calculator. We did not calculate our carbon. Datuk patah balik kat kita. Dia kata, this is rubbish. Apa you buat ni? We don't want this. And then dia tak cakap pun apa dia nak lagi selepas tu. Very simple. Arwah Datuk Radin, very sharp. Bekas KP betul, pengajian tinggi dan juga yang pengangkutan tu. He's an expert on transportation. And then dia bagi macam tu saja dan saya patah balik. So dalam hati saya, apa orang tua ni nak sebenarnya? And then I discuss with my group. I cakap, he talk about carbon footprint. Hence, now, apa kata kita calculate the carbon, carbon emission. Here comes the project where kita calculate how many numbers of buses that has been moving around the campus 24 hours a day. By calculating the carbon emission, this is the scenario of the current condition, and then we map the origin to the destination. Student move from the college to their faculty. So we map the origin, the travel origin to the destination, and then we put radius. Now we do radius buffer analysis by using GIS. Within 300 meters, people still have to be able to walk. From 300 meters to 600 meters, then people tend not to walk. They will do cycling. So beyond 600 meters, here comes the buses should be provided. So we have a scenario of existing buses. After the proposal, we have the numbers of buses that can be reduced. And then we calculate before scenario how ton carbon being emitted, after the reduction, after the proposal, how much carbon per ton can be reduced by this proposal. And Datuk was so happy, arwah Datuk Radin was so happy, he said, now, Joe, berapa juta unit, let's implement it. Alhamdulillah. Sekarang kalau you pergi UPM, we have our bicycle lane and covered walkway. And then now we have our MRT UPM. Dia minta lagi kita tambah laluan pejalan kaki berbumbung menghubungkan ke MRT UPM. Now this is another project. So tuan-tuan jangan muntah, banyak maths. Ada banyak maths lepas ni. So this is another project. Rasa-rasa kat mana ni? Yes, betul tuan. Pandai, tuan pandai baca map. Taman Negara faham. So kita ada key map atas tu, Taman Negara faham. So kita dapat satu projek, dia kata, now we have a lot of greenery. This is what I've been telling Jabatan Landscape Negara, Jabatan Perhutanan. Kalau tuan-tuan, saya nak tanya tuan-tuan, apa value-nya pokok pada kita? Oksigen, serap oksigen, beri oksigen, serap pollution dan sebagainya. Tapi kita punya politician ni, menteri lah timbalan menteri, dia hanya go back to money, dollar and cent. So this project asking us to calculate how much is the value in terms of economic values of our Taman Negara. Dia nak tahu berapa duit Taman Negara kita ni supaya they come into a decision that let us preserve and conserve our Taman Negara. So apa benefitnya untuk kita preserve and conserve our Taman Negara? Now hence kita kira how much carbon can be sequestrated, how much carbon can be stored by maintaining this vegetation. Kaedah yang kita guna ialah kita guna satu method, satu kaedah dipanggil NDVI. Normalized Vegetation, Normalized Different Vegetation Index. By using NDVI, kita akan dapat kepadatan pokok ni. Lagi dia padat, lagi tinggilah carbon yang dia boleh store. Maka, kita akan dapat lihat berapa tan carbon yang kita boleh store. Lagi gelap hijau yang kita map ni, lagi padat tumbuhan dekat situ, lagi tinggilah carbon yang boleh store. Kemudian kita calculate the ringgit Malaysia value of this carbon. Kita bentangkan dekat dia, ya. Betul, kita gunakan again satellite imaging. Kaedah NDVI allow us to calculate the density of the vegetation based on the reflection of the spectral properties. Properties of the spectra, berapa banyak yang dipantulkan oleh lagi hijau pokok tu, kadar penyerapan fotosintesis dia berdasarkan kepada kaedah penyerapan kaedah fotosintesis. Lagi hijau lagi tinggi lagi hijau lagi banyak dia selai. Betul, reflect kurang. Kalau pokok tu tidak sihat, pokok tu tidak padat, lagi tinggilah dia akan pantulkan balik. Berdasarkan teknologi inilah kita kira kepadatan pokok tersebut. Value-nya daripada -1 until 1. Berdasarkan value tersebut, kita akan kira dia punya kepadatan, dan lagi kita ada satu formula di mana lagi padat pokok tu, lagi tinggi dia akan serap karbon. Lagi tinggi dia akan store karbon. Hasil daripada pengiraan store karbon ni, kita lihat kepada American punya formula, international IPCC, International Production of Carbon Counting something ni, berdasarkan that standard formula, dan kita compute kepada the monetary value. And the monetary value of our taman negara di bahagian Pahang saja jatuh mencecah kepada 1 trilion ringgit Malaysia. Data ini adalah pada tahun 2013. Sekarang dah 2025. Lagi 12 tahun. Exactly. Kenapa kita perlukan banyak lagi taman di Malaysia? Kenapa kita kena? Kalau kita cakap, sebab saya nak berrekreasi dengan cucu saya, dengan anak saya, dia boleh juga pergi ke IOI Mall berrekreasi. Sebab kita perlukan teduhan. So, teduh. So, they want a monetary value. One politician ni, at the end of the day, duit. They want that kind of input. So, with this input, now they are happy. So, this is the things that we did. Alhamdulillah. So, tapi, now, how we represent graphically? Ni tuan-tuan dan puan-puan kena ajar saya sikit lah, kena educate saya. So we use the tone of green. The darker the green, perhaps telling them that is a higher density of vegetation within that space. This is how we do it. This is another interesting project. I love this project. In any of my talk, in any of my lecture, I'll give this example. Guys, please have a guess. What is so interesting about this? We have 2 maps showing 2 different dates, 2 different year, 25th April 2014, 7th April 2019. And this map is talking about temperature. Yes, correct. Cool area 2014 concentrated at the city center. Guys, in the same time, in the afternoon, take note, in the afternoon, where people going to the city, working, air conditioning open, switch on, cars are moving within the city. Tahun 2014, very hot in the city center. But why 2019, city center become very cold and dispersed to the residential. Why? Why, guys? Yes, kurang kereta ke bandar, betul, tapi kurang tempat. Well, 2019 is not still efficient. Guys, what happened 2019? Yes. Bingo. COVID. PPP. Perintah berkurung. No, 2019 ada. Berlaku juga. Kita buat ni waktu awal-awal PKP. 2020 adalah akhir PKP. Now, masa PKP, what is happen? Everybody kena berkurung. Termasuklah pakcik ni. Saya pun kena berkurung kat rumah. Berkurung kat rumah, saya tengok muka bini saya. Bini saya tengok muka saya. Saya tengok muka anak, anak tengok muka saya. Saya cakap, apa aku nak buat kat rumah ni? Ketagih nak buat map. Ketagih nak buat analisa. Then I start to tell myself, what is so good about PKP? What is the positivity of MCO? There must be something that God would like to tell us. There is some positivity about MCO, not only negative. At that particular time, orang dah fikir, oh kena berkurung lah, tak boleh pergi kedai mamak, tak boleh jumpa girlfriend, tak boleh jumpa boyfriend, tak boleh pergi tasik dan sebagainya. But I'm thinking, what is the positivity of MCO? Now, here comes the idea of looking at the temperature before COVID and during MCO. So we realized that there is a reduction of temperature within the city center. And then masa tu, once we come up with this result, tangan gatal. I cakap, I nak kena cakap dengan jurnalis lah. Masa tu News Straight Time. Saya ingat lagi siapa nama dia, an Indian lady. Saya call dia. Saya buat muka tebal lah. Saya tanya saya punya bahagian corporate di UPM. Give me few numbers of journalists. I ada benda lah nak share dengan dia orang. Lepas tu dia bagilah number. I text everyone. Utusan Malaysia tak layan. You name it. Harian Metro cakap apa pakcik tua ni duduk kebang saya ni. Berita harian tak layan. Tapi Alhamdulillah, News Straight Time. Very interesting, bro. This is on 2020 April, around that. So a year later, lepas kita analyse, not a year later, few months later, after that, one lady, apa nama dia, ada kat atas tu. Dia kata, this is very interesting, this is very positive about MCO. Can you write something? Can you give me information? Then I said, yes, this is what I would like to tell the world. I would like to tell Malaysia. The beauty of MCO. Lepas keluar berita ni, terus keluar dalam media sosial, monyet mandi dekat swimming pool, burung keluar. So now we started to see the beauty of MCO. Alhamdulillah. So actually, whatever God given us, there is a sign, a signal that yang dia nak bagi tahu kita. And from this project, one of my students graduated her PhD. We publish many publications. Barulah start keluar macam-macam dekat media sosial, and we won honor award of this project. As simple as that. Tapi, no. The idea is now how to tell the world, how to tell Malaysia by using colors, by using graphic, with the data that we analyze. Yeah? So we use colors. This is what we call heat map. Heat map using colors. So we use satellite imagery. So we represent red very hot to gradient to is black and white spectral. When it comes in spectral, well, if you have satellite imagery, hyperspectral satellite imagery, dia punya band daripada band 1 mungkin can reach until band 15 or band 20. And each of the band have different color spectrum. Red, near infrared, blue, green, etc. Our portrait, we have what? Green, yellow, and the three colors. But satellite imagery have spectral properties, which varies of these many band. So we are only using few band colors, and actually the colors represented by black and white. By using these colors, then we analyze and we produce these heat maps. Yeah, okay, and turn it into this very informative information. Now, this is another interesting map, and another interesting project. This is elevation map and slope map, and this project were given by Wildlife Department. Well, in Malaysia, besides of our Malayan tiger, Harimau Malaya, kita ada satu lagi spesies yang sangat-sangat fragile, yang sangat-sangat sentiasa keluar surat khabar. Agak-agak spesies apa selain daripada harimau? Gajah, tapir. Dan salah satu projek yang Wildlife Department beri kepada tim saya adalah gajah. So ni dekat jalan Lebuh Raya Creek yang menghubungkan Kelantan dengan barat dan timur. So dia kata gajah kat situ sentiasa jadi mangsa manusia. Lori, langgar, mati dan sebagainya. So we would like to propose a conservatory area untuk gajah-gajah liar. So what they ask us to do, please find the most suitable site untuk kita jadikan pusat konservasi gajah liar di area Creek. So we do several analysis and then we come up with a report kesesuaian cadangan kawasan sanctuary Gajah Perak. So with few analysis, I cannot share the results. Perhilitan ni dia ketekut. Kadang-kadang dia bagi kita buat paper, kadang-kadang dia tak bagi kita buat paper. So ini antara projek yang perhilitan tak bagi kita buat paper. So we come up with this idea, where shall we conserve and preserve gajah liar around Great Highway itu. This is another interesting project. Selepas gajah, we successfully managed to buat projek gajah. Perhilitan kata, oh this is very good. You boleh tengokkan kita punya harimau tak? So we got another project. So projek ni adalah projek harimau. Tapi lain sikit projeknya. Projeknya bukan untuk conserve and preserve harimau Malaya. Tetapi dia suruh kita cari titik atau lokasi mana yang paling sesuai untuk kita lepaskan harimau ke kawasan hidupan liar dia. Di Pahang ada satu pusat konservasi harimau. Dia beli 5 ekor harimau, satu jantan ke satu betina. Dia macam tu lah. Sama ada satu jantan 4 betina ataupun 4 jantan 1 betina. Dia akan mengawalkan jantan dan betina ni sehingga menghasilkan anak-anak harimau. Hasil daripada pengawalan harimau ni, anak harimau ini perlu dilepaskan ke kawasan hidupan liar. Maka dia dah ada beberapa ekor anak harimau yang berjaya dihasilkan, yang kemudian dia ingin lepaskan. Kita tak boleh lepas suka-suka tuan-tuan dan perempuan. Lepas kat tepi rumah Cik Faizal, habis. Lepas kat kawasan tanaman Cik Nasir, habis. So dia minta kita menganalisa dekat mana kawasan yang paling banyak makanan untuk harimau tersebut, yang paling selamat jauh daripada penduduk, yang ada sumber air, ada tempat untuk dia mengawan dan semain dan sebagainya. Ini hasilnya. Kita buat hotspot analysis menggunakan data Jabatan Perhilitan. Very interesting, they use camera trap. They put camera trap within Taman Negara. Tapi Taman Negara ni within 3 negeri. Taman Negara Pahang, Kelantan dan juga Terengganu. So they put camera trap. They give us information how many numbers of existing harimau Malaya within. And then they will give us how many numbers of rusa, babi hutan, kancil dan sebagainya. With that numbers of species, we come up with an hotspot analysis, taburan titik panas mangsa dan pemangsa. Harimau yang memakan mangsa. Kemudian, kita hanya lihat kepada taburan mangsa, taburan pemangsa. Faktor lain kita lihat jarak dengan kawasan penduduk, kita lihat juga kecerunan dan juga kita lihat sumber air. Kita hanya tertumpu kepada faktor ini supaya at the end of the day kita suggest beberapa spot that the most suitable for them to disperse the harimau. Kita tak study pembiakan mangsa ataupun pembiakan pemangsa. Study ni hanya meminta kita untuk cari lokasi yang paling sesuai untuk kita disperse. Dan kaedah disperse tu is very interesting. Either you use helicopter, you put in the cage, leave it there. There are two countries that are using this, Indonesia and Nepal ke India. So I learned a lot from this project. From all this project, I'm just a geospecialist, but I learned a lot on human behavior, animal behavior, gajah, harimau, tapir. Dekat Selangor pun kita dapat projek ni, but I didn't show the example. Ular, amphibians dan sebagainya. So I learned a lot. Sikit-sikit lah belajar daripada expert animal yang lain. So hasil daripada ni, let me know when should I stop. Okay. Dr. Syarah ni dapat mikrofon je macam menyanyi. Faham? So this is the map showing few spot, the most suitable. So we suggest here, and another point. So we use colors. We use colors to represent where is the most point that might be best for you to disperse the Malayan tiger. So this is the result. This is another very interesting project. Now, tadi kita lihat taman negara, satu taman yang besar. Beratus mungkin ekar dan hektar. Now here comes the idea, our small spaces. The idea of coming up with this study, kita punya tagline adalah size doesn't matter. Walau kecil ke besar, ianya sepatutnya memberi kita satu kebaikan. Kita lihat bahawa ni kita study untuk Majlis Bandaraya Shah Alam. Kita cakap dengan Majlis Bandaraya Shah Alam, walaupun you punya kawasan hijau, even though your green spaces in a smaller size, it doesn't matter. You should take care of the vegetation within these small green spaces because even though it is small, it actually have the capacity to store carbon. So this is, we calculate carbon storage within small green spaces around Shah Alam. So we use again satellite imagery, we analyze. Dekat sini adalah map showing the vegetation. So we use colors. The red colors showing shrub trees, the bluish color showing the medium height trees, and the yellow color showing the tall trees. So you can see that in the smaller green spaces within Shah Alam, sebenarnya tak ada pokok-pokok tinggi. They're in between medium range to shrubs. Now, with that, then we calculate. Tak nampak dah. We calculate this, and this is actually showing. Saya tak nampak, tak maaf. And at the end of the day, now it tells us lagi dark dia punya brown, actually lagi tinggi kadar pokok itu menyimpan karbon. Ini the results of the process. We use satellite imagery. Yang ini I can't see what is this result all about. Okay, so this is the process. So actually size doesn't matter. Walaupun kecil, sebenarnya dia ada kelebihan juga dari segi untuk menyimpan. Okay, so this is another project. Now, ini project apa ya? Yes, this is project kita dapat daripada ni sis Perak tak silap saya. Ada orang Perak saya nampak pakai Perak. Ini Perak? Ya? Gunung Korbu, Gunung Gayung, Gunung Suku, Gunung Cabang. Kenapa bagusnya gunung-gunung ni? Ini hikers ya? Ada sesiapa hiking? Rupanya ini antara these among gunung, hills that are very famous for hikers. They hike. Siapa yang berjaya naik ke atas tu champion. Now, the problem with these 4 hills, gunung-gunung ni, makin lama situasinya makin merosot. Dari segi track dia, dari segi vegetation dia. Hikers ni, dia punya mentality, dia nak hike sampai atas, ambil gambar, dia tunjuk dalam Facebook dia, their achievement and etc. Tapi the awareness of, taking care of the vegetation, the trail and etc. tu mungkin agak kurang di kalangan, bukan semua hikers, mungkin kebanyakan hikers. Now, Kerajaan Negeri Perak, Jabatan Perhutanan Negeri Perak asking us to do a study. Now, we use a method called carrying capacity method. We would like to tell them how many is too many, how much is too much for us to allow hikers to go through this gunung-gunung ni. Jika ianya melebihi satu kapasiti, ia akan mengakibatkan kemusnahan kepada trail tersebut. So we use this analysis. We do elevation, slope analysis and etc. And we give them the magic numbers. So the numbers, the data should not exceed maybe, I lupa numbers dia. For example, 20 hikers per trip. And we give them, you should not exceed 3 trips per day. So that you can cap the capacity and it will not jeopardize. Dia tidak akan hapuskan, dia tidak akan rosakkan sumber alam dekat trail tersebut. Siapa pernah dengar di pulau di Thailand? Ada pulau apa nama dia, PP Island ke apa, yang mana they don't cap the capacity and it jeopardize the resources. Sampai satu masa kerajaan terpaksa tutup pulau tu untuk dia refurbish balik sumber alam kat situ, barulah dia allow orang masuk. Contoh Pulau Pangkor, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Did we keep or not numbers of visitors coming inside Pulau Pangkor? Did we do this analysis of vegetation cover in Pulau Pangkor? Do we have those data on? Here comes the, I love this actually when, actually hari ni banyak benda sebenarnya nak kena attend. Tapi bila Cik Nasir cakap, hey, can you do a keynote here? Saya cakap, ni keynote apa benda? Dia bagi benda ni, saya cakap, wow, this is very interesting. So I tolak lah. Sebenarnya hari ni Menteri KPT Zamri ada kat UPM. UPM, kalau you Google, dia pergi UPM. Dia pergi UPM, saya sebagai dekan patut kena ada sana. Tapi saya cakap, no, tak apa, saya nak ada sini sebab very interesting. Buat apalah kita nak pergi ngadak menteri, padahal Pangkor ini ada banyak resources. We should do all this analysis, projection simulation of the ecological features of Pulau Pangkor. We should carry the carrying capacity. How much is too much? How many is too many that we can allow? Ini setiap kali ada je trip ferry. Does every trip tu will jeopardize the quality of the water? So benda ni sebenarnya we should encourage scientists collaborate with you to do this analysis. Okay, so this is the idea. This is the last maps. Okay, dah muntah dah dengan maps. So this is the last few maps. This is another interesting project similar to Kuala Lumpur earlier. I started with Kuala Lumpur. Now my projects are not only focusing locally, now we are doing internationally. We've got a project from China. Now Taiwan City in China, in what province? I forgot the name of the province. China ni besar, very big nama province pun kita tak ingat. So now Taiwan City having the similar issue like Kuala Lumpur City, flash flooding. Hujan lebat sikit, flash flood. Hujan lebat sikit, flash flood. Now they ask us to do simulation, prediction. Okay, so we analyze how much grade, how much build up. So we come up with the map. We started by year 2000, end up year 2022. So these are the periodical, around 10 years periodical kalau you tengok. 10 years, 11 years, and then from 11 years to 2022, another 11 years. With this periodical data, then we start to do simulation. We produce map, simulate projecting the flash flood prone area within Taiwan City for year 2030, 2040. Kita bagi dia the information. But this data is very important. Huh? This is where green, where build up, and then we focus on the build up. Within build up, kita tengok dia punya impervious surface. Impervious surface pun ada level dia. Ada impervious surface yang sangat serap air. Ada yang moderately serap. Ada yang very low serap. So we calculate a different level. Low, moderate and high impervious. Depends on what kind of features, what kind of surfaces within that city area. Then we calculate the runoff. With that surfaces, kita tahu betapa lajunya air melalui kawasan tu. Sama ada dia cepat serap, moderately serap ataupun kurang serap. We calculate the runoff. And then we start to calculate where are the flash flood prone area within that kawasan bandar tersebut. So the darker the blue color is the higher of the air akan probably bertakung, flash flood. Kita tak stop kat situ. Dan kita tengok dalam banyak-banyak flash flood prone area ni, mana yang paling tinggi, mana yang paling moderate dan mana yang paling rendah. Mana yang paling cepat, mana yang paling moderate, mana yang paling rendah daripada atas kadar penyerapan dia tersebut. Dia punya kekerapan flash flooding dia. Then from this data, these beautiful maps that we produce, then we started to simulate 2030, 2040, what will happen to Taiwan City. The results is still not there. In the process, with my PhD student, Liu Yang from China, so we managed to do this. Now guys, we did this as well for Kuala Lumpur City. We presented this to Kuala Lumpur Mayor City. Pun baru lepas kena pindah ke Petronas. Try to guess, apa? Tak sebut. Cakap dia pindah Petronas, you kenal lah dia siapa kan? Agak-agak apa dia cakap? Kita ni, kalau bukan mata biru, kalau bukan rambut perang, minta maaf, kalau bukan kulit putih, boleh layan. Tapi orang luar layan kita. Orang kita kurang layan selagi kita bukan mata biru, rambut perang. Agaknya saya kena pakai contact lens tu. Mata biru, perangkan rambut, putihkan kulit. Lepas tu cakap masyarakat sikit. Well, Dato', I'm coming over from UK, trying to present. Agaknya baru dia layan. Chinese pun dia tak layan. So this is our mentality. So if you are not interested, you don't care, well, it's okay. Let me go to the other part of the world and present my work. And they buy my work here. So sayang. Tapi setiap kali hujan lebat, KL, banjir. Setiap kali hujan lebat, KL, banjir kilat. You tell me dalam Kuala Lumpur tu ada tak they carry out this study? To a very detailed until this stage. We come up with this algorithm, we come up with this modeling. It's not easy, to come up with algorithm and modeling. We will pattern this algorithm and modeling, insyaAllah. Okay? Now, we come up, mungkin bagi saya sikit masa sikit lah. 2 minit, okay. Oh, dia dah geram dah, 2 minit. Now guys, we have this technology now. Now we move to another stage. Tadi yang saya tunjuk tu hanya adalah static maps. Now we have what we call interactive mapping technology. You can go to all these websites. I would like to demo, tapi masa tak cukup. If you go to covidvisualizer.com, it will tell you around the world They use red colors. The darkest the red colors, the reddest the colors is the highest numbers of COVID until now. Visualize, very interactive. You can zoom in, zoom out. Earthquake map, beautiful website showing earthquake around the world. Malam semalam I zoom in Japan, 24 hours. One day tidak ada berlaku, tapi 1 week so many red dotted line, red dotted circle, not line, red dotted circle, big, smaller, telling us the numbers of earthquake happening, how many skala Richter yang berlaku. This all interactive map. Now, how we relate to Pangko, maybe in terms of culture, you can look at this layersoflondon.org. It gives you an interactive London mapping showing where are the interesting spots of culture, heritage, museums, and etc. You zoom in, and it will tell you the history. Very interactive. We can do this for Pangko. We can do this in fact for many areas like Kuala Kangsar and etc. Very interesting. Yeah. Apart from all this, Google Earth. Siapa selalu tengok Google Earth? Kita boleh pergi ke bulan. Can we go to moon and Mars from Google Earth? Do you know that? Saya nak demo tapi masa tak cukup. If you go to Google Earth, there is an option you can go to moon. You can zoom moon. Tu dia tanya betul. Pak Cik ni nak tipu saya kan? I can demo you. There is one option ke atas tu, maybe sebelah timing ke sebelah ruler tu. You click from Earth, you move to moon. From moon, you move to Mars. You boleh pergi ke planet Mars, Marikh. You boleh pergi ke Galaxy Star. This is what I'm telling my youngest son. Don't play Minecraft. Don't play all this gaming. Roblox, Fortnite, you name it. I cakap, stop playing that. Look at this Google Earth. Oh, he was so amazed. He spent many hours looking at moons, Mars, and etc. So this is what we call interactive. Yeah? Ada? Nanti sekali lagi kita buat dua-dua. Boleh? And you can also go to this openweathermap.org. It shows you the forecast of pressure, wind, temperature around the world. So this is what we call the advancement of real-time and dynamic mapping. All this interactive. So here in Malaysia, do we have this? We should venture into this. And we should cooperate between arts and sciences. You tell me what colors suitable, what symbols, how interactive and intuitive these features should be, and I'll tell you in terms of the sciences, the data. We should work together. We shouldn't work in silo. I buat geospatial sendiri berangan seorang-seorang, you buat you punya canvas 50 lukisan tak habis-habis. We should combine together. Kita gunakan platform Pangko ni sebagai experimental tempat to do all this. Okay. Last few things. I went to Guilin early this year. This is virtual VR. Apa beza VR and AR? What is kita duduk cakap lah pergi mana-mana. We should go to augmented reality and virtual reality. What is the difference between AR and VR? Kenapa I pose you this question? Because I sendiri malu. When I went to Guilin early this year, I stepped into this lab. I said, you have a beautiful AR. And then all these Chinese guys look at me. Hey, Prof, you don't know what the difference between AR and VR. This is not AR. This is VR. And then I started to, it's okay. I admit there's a difference between AR and VR. Yes, Prof, there's a difference between AR and VR. VR is this, AR is this. So we got to understand before we would like to say something. So he taught me. So I went to Guilin, beautiful lab, equipped with all these facilities, they have virtual reality. Virtual reality does not overlay with what is real. Augmented reality has a layer of what is real. Virtual is totally virtual. Huh? And virtual, you need to wear the VR glasses. Augmented reality might not need you to wear those devices. Understand it? So I'm still learning. Exactly. Yes. Dah dapat profesor tu bodoh. No, you jangan cakap you dapat profesor you pandai. No. Today also, since yesterday masa dinner dan sebagainya, when I talk to you guys, I learn a lot ni. Perjanjian Pangko lah, pasal Adam, kewujudan Adam atau I've been digesting. Wow, this is very interesting. So you hanya tahu bidang ni saja. You bukan profesor kangkung, profesor sebertahu. No. Don't claim yourself professor, you pandai segala benda. No. I am only a geospatialist. I tahu pasal geospatialist saja. Now I want to venture into this augmented reality, virtual reality, and etc. So we need to have this as well in Pangko platform. Yeah, to have all this. China, Masya Allah, dia punya advancement of technology. Silalah pergi China. You akan rasa terkejut. Saya rasa some of you dah pergi China kan. Dia punya teknologi. Okay, so I tried this VR. I experienced this VR, beautiful, and I wish that my faculty have all these facilities and we can show it to the world. But if it's not in faculty, perhaps in Pangko, maybe we can do something like this. Alright, so way forward message, my last slide, okay, sorry. My last slide, way forward message to Pangko Island. Perhaps, we can have all this interactive and immersive storytelling. Use animation, dashboard, story maps, now you name it, AR, VR, etc. to transform geospatial data. Beautiful Pangko. Kita ada air, kita ada hijau, kita ada budaya, kita ada heritage, kita ada sejarah dan sebagainya. We transform this geospatial data into compelling narrative for communication and education. People go to certain spaces not only for the attraction, but they want to have the story that narrate the narrative, so that bila dia balik, dia bawa penceritaan tu kepada orang lain dan orang lain akan berminat untuk datang. Tidaklah dia datang, contoh tengah orang Perak datang labu sayur, habis setakat labu sayur balik. Bawa balik lah, paling kuat pun beli satu labu sayur kecil, bawa balik lah. Dan bawa balik cakap dengan cucu, Atuk pergi ni Perak beli labu sayur. But the narrative, the story behind how the process of making this labu sayur, from what material, sejarah dan sebagainya, mungkin kita boleh narrate them into using VR, AR ataupun all these storytelling interactive features. And again, I would like to convey this. We should collaborate, guys. We should collaborate. I'm really thankful you guys for inviting me this morning. I love having around orang-orang seni, orang-orang budaya dan sebagainya. We should collaborate. Jangan kerja in silo. I've always tell myself. That's why I've been starting working with animal experts, vegetation experts, and etc. Now, I would love to work with you guys. Okay. And we can also geospatial products as cultural and creative media. So we can turn all these cultural things into geospatial products. So I think with that, sorry, I'll take a lot of time this morning. So I thank you for your attention. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Question, guys? Tak perlu question.
Saya
Ada
dah tahu nak open kan? Tahu. Satu dua lah. Because saya rasa satu perbincangan yang sangat bagi saya boleh explain dengan simple menarik. Sebab satu membuka, saya daripada bidang film dan TV, so selalu kita melihat ruang tu dari sudut fiction. Macam mana kita nak create ruang, of course kita rujuk pada yang lepas-lepas macam mana kan. Jadi ruang itu temporal lah untuk film. But yang ni bagi satu benda yang saya rasa lain ni. Maksudnya saya pun cuba fikir bagaimana untuk relate seni, sains yang Prof usahakan. Ada sikit soalan. Ya, Cik Esok.
So, biasa flora dan fauna tadi kan. So kalau highway daripada KL ke utara, kita melalui Ipoh kan, Simpang Pulai, Ipoh terus kepada Padang Ngas. Kita dapati bahawasanya bukit limestone, bukit batu kapur, sikit banyak, bukan sikit banyak lah, sebenarnya banyak yang ditarah kan untuk ekonomi. So batu-batu limestone ni, porosity dia barangkali saya tak pasti macam mana porosity limestone. Satu masa dulu di batu cave tu pun dah dijadikan kuari, tapi telah dihentikan kerana ada kuil di batu cave tu dah dihentikan. Tetapi di laluan Lebuh Raya, Simpang Pulai ke atas, bukit Bukau limestone tu dah ditarah. Kita boleh nampak, very visible. Sekarang makin teruk. Jadi saya tak rasa negeri punya how do I say konsep membiarkan ianya terus ditarah ataupun somehow somewhere satunya pemandangan jadi bodoh, pemandangan jadi buruk, and then heritage dalam konteks alam sekitar ni makin musnah atas faktor ekonomi. So apa-apa pandangan Prof dalam hal ini? Sorry kepada penduduk ni terasa so perkara-perkara satu alam sekitar tu perlu dipelihara sebagai keindahan itu, and then macam Prof sebut tadi lah, tadahan hujan dan sebagainya. So jangka panjang apa akan jadi bila semua bukit Bukau limestone ni ditarah? Saya rasa satu masa nanti akan habis semua limestone ni di situ. Apa pandangan Prof?
Terima kasih Cik Anik. Saya bercakap bukan sekadar bukan sebagai ini saya sebagai layman. Betul, kita lihat di negara kita banyak kerosakan berlaku. I totally agree with you. Bukan saja di Perak, di mana-mana. Kalau you tengok satellite imagery tu, you'll be surprised. Digazetkan sebagai hutan simpan. Di luar nampak cantik, tapi you tengok tengah dia, punyalah botak, punyalah habis login dekat tengah-tengah tu. Kelantan, Pahang, you name it, few area. Pada pendapat saya, kita perlu furnish maklumat data kepada pihak berkuasa. Melalui data ni, melalui scientific kajiannya, scientific research, apakah kesan-kesan ke atas perubahan bentuk muka bumi ni kepada dunia ataupun kepada tempat tersebut pada masa akan datang. Saya rasa kalau kita hanya cakap bodoh, ditarah, kenapa ditarah, you argue tanpa scientific data, tanpa maklumat yang rapi. Contohnya, kalau katakanlah kita nak bagi tahu mereka, kita tunjukkan periodical changes of the species. Kita tunjukkan daripada tahun sekian kepada tahun sekian, these are the changes. And from these periodical changes, now I come up with an algorithm, I come up with a simulation and prediction, probably not 100% accurate, probably in 2030, in 2040, this will happen. Now, what you think of your action might assist us to sustain such area for future generation. Kalau kita hanya cakap, kita kena sokong SDG, Sustainable Development dan sebagainya, tanpa you furnish the information, furnish the prediction simulation, diorang pun cakap, okay, kerajaan perlu duit, kerajaan perlu sumber pendapatan, tapi you have to, ini pendapat saya lah, dari segi apa bidang yang saya buat. If you tell them the probably economic value, ataupun how much carbon can be stored ke, atau how much damages can happen by showing them the proof, ataupun saya ingat lagi, kalau siapa ada nombor telefon saya, Facebook saya dan sebagainya,
gambar tu saya selalu guna profile picture saya tak pernah ubah profile picture saya daripada saya belajar lagi. Gambar saya dengan Prince Philip. Saya dan Prince Philip ni saya terpilih sebagai seorang postgraduate yang kena present my research kepada Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, coming over to University of Edinburgh. So I presented my work to Prince Philip. So one of my colleagues doing a PhD talking about the rise of seawater level in London. A lady, English person from England. So she presented and she conveyed the information to Prince Philip masa presented in that particular presentation. She said that your Buckingham Palace will be flooded. Dia tunjukkan senario air akan naik dekat Buckingham Palace dia dekat sekian masa pada tahun sekian, and you punya Buckingham Palace will be gone. And then that Prince Philip said, wow. So with this simulation, with this scenario, kalau kita tak cater, precaution measures and etc. So this is what happened to your Buckingham Palace. So we can tell our pihak berkuasa. Datuk Harusani, your Datuk Harusani ke your Menteri Besar? Syarani, sorry. Harusani yang lain. Oh, yang mesti ya, sorry. You cakap dengan Datuk Syarani, Datuk, kalau you tak jaga you punya kuari ni, sekejap lagi, you punya rumah yang dekat sebelah kuari, contohlah kalau dia ada bangla, habis gone, kena hempak di kuari. You tengok apa dia punya. Tapi you jangan cakap kosong-kosong, you at least give some data, analysis, prediction and etc. And to do this is not easy. Trust me. To do this, you kena buat a lot of work. Yeah? And satellite imagery is available around the world. There's no secret now. You go to USGS website, you can get China ni, sibuk lah, tak takut orang ambil data negara dia. But I can get China satellite imagery as simple as that by just going to USGS website. Google Earth might not be very accurate, but USGS website, I can simply get satellite imagery at any part of the world and analyze the information there.
Prof, saya cuba masa interrupt. Saya menjemput pengurusi pendidikan Dr. Khalil untuk ke hadapan menyampaikan sikit hati kepada Prof. Saya nak bagi penjelasan. Prof GS Dr. Muhammad Johari Muhammad Yusof ialah Dekan Fakulti Reka Bentuk dan Seni Media UPM serta Profesor di Jabatan Seni Media Landscape, lulusan PhD dan Master of Science dalam GIS dari University of Edinburgh. Beliau berpengalaman luas dalam perancangan landscape ruang hijau, bandar, infrastruktur hijau dan juga analisis GIS. Dipersilakan. Dan terima kasih dari Sri Prof. Berterima kasih kepada Prof atas ucapan beliau tadi, dan saya rasa sangat memberi satu ruang perbincangan yang baru, dan saya harap selepas ni Pulau Bangkok di bawah ni dapat projek Prof untuk kita selesaikan perkara berkaitan dengan Prof ni. Jadi saya kita berhenti sekejap dan kita akan sambung. Sorry. Maaf, saya terlupa. Saya menjemput tamu kita Encik Aziz Macak untuk keluar ke depan untuk menerima cenderung hati daripada pihak pengunjung. Okey, berterima kasih Encik Asmi. Dan saya rasa kita ada sedikit jamuan, berehat seketika dan kita akan sambung dalam 10 minit, saya rasa dalam 11:15.